Today I'm here in a place called Sellafield, which is close by to the Cumbrian coast and is surrounded by quiet countryside and empty roads. But I'm not just here for the countryside, I'm here to visit a very uncommon place. This site here, which covers 1.5 square mile, had a controversial public reputation when it was still known as a place called Windscale. This place was Britain's first ever nuclear complex, where in the early 1950s, plutonium-239 was produced to be used in the UK's first nuclear bomb. Today the site is known as Sellafield, and it has a history which was covered up for decades. Back in the late 1950s, it is believed that this peaceful and quaint area in northwestern England experienced what was known as UK's most serious nuclear power accident. A huge fire broke out in a reactor chimney at the Windscale nuclear reactor facility, causing so much radioactivity in the area that it came to be known as Britain's Chernobyl. But how did it even happen in the first place? Well, the nuclear plant here in Windscale consisted of 2 gas-cooled nuclear reactors. It became Britain's first nuclear complex in the late 1940s, and its Calder-Hall reactors began generating electricity in 1956. The accident occurred on October 8, 1957, when a routine heating of the number 1 reactor's graphite control blocks got out of control, causing adjacent uranium cartridges to rupture. The uranium thus began to oxidize, releasing radioactivity and causing a fire that burned for 16 hours before it was put out. The fire left about 10 tons of radioactive fuel melted in the reactor core. The Windscale Fire also caused the release of sizable amounts of radioactive iodine into the atmosphere. But what does that even mean, and what happened as a result? Well, the place burned continuously for 3 full days, causing 240 cases of cancer resulting from the release of radioactive matter during the fire. Plus, there was an immediate ban on the distribution of milk from an area covering 200 square miles around the reactor site. In 2003, UK government tests also found traces of technetium-99 in salmon bred in farms near the plant. It was so tragic that it reached level 5 of 7 on the International Nuclear Event Scale. Now that's something to be concerned about. To put it in James Temperton's words, Sellafield is home to 80% of the UK's nuclear waste and some of the world's most hazardous buildings. He even goes on to say that within the other areas of Sellafield, the levels of radiation are so extreme that no humans can even enter. But it was all thanks to one guy's bravery that Sellafield and the surrounding areas near Lake District are classed as safe today. We know from interviews that it was largely thanks to the courage of Deputy General Manager Tom Toohey, who was born in November 1917, that the Lake District is still habitable today. When all else had failed to stop the fire, Toohey, a chemist by profession, scaled the reactor building, took a full blast of the radiation and stared into the blaze below. One of the interviewees said this about Tom Toohey. He was standing there putting water in, and if things had gone wrong with the water, it had never been tried before on a reactor fire. If it had exploded, Cumberland would have been finished, blown to smithereens. It would have been like Chernobyl. There was contamination everywhere, on the golf course, in the milk, in chickens, but it was quickly forgotten about. Anyways, as always, at the time the British government released only sketchy details of the accident and in general tried to minimise its seriousness. In fact, the people who worked there were expected to keep quiet about it and go about their work. Today, entry is extremely limited, and the only place you'll see Sellafield and Windscale discussed is within academic circles at universities. With limited access for the general public, journalists and environmentalists, this place could soon become non-existent to many. Stories from people who work there are becoming scarce to hear about. However, thanks to the book Sellafield Stories, we still know about 100 people who were interviewed about the incident. People who either work there, live nearby, or whose lives were somehow linked to the nuclear site.
What about the incident in 1957 when there was a fire at Windscale in one of the piles? How did that affect the local community, Mary?
Well, yes, it did. In the farming, that was when they put milk down the drains,
That's
wasn't it?
right.
And that sort of thing. I'm trying to think. Oh, well, my brother was still on the farm, that's right. He was on the farm at Gosforth, and he was affected, as the farms were. Put your milk down the drain because, you can't drink that. And, I mean, people reacted in different ways, but those who were working there sort of, well, it was their work, and so they didn't want to be against the thing.
Did that change any opinions amongst local people, do you think? Would it give rise to more concern about the fallout, for example, from that sort of incident? So.
I think they did, sort of secretly, but as I say, they tended to, well, we better not say anything because it's so-and-so's livelihood. So sometimes you kept quiet when you didn't really, when you were scared stiff, really.